If you're just joining us, welcome into the SPL, but if you were here with us since the waiting room, let's keep this right on rolling. We are moving into the final week now of the SPL, and we're starting off with perhaps the most important match of the entire weekend, at least the one with the biggest implication for the standings moving into those playoffs. Now, I'm joined here on the desk to break down this all-important set by my partner in crime, Mifflin. Do you like that title, Miff? I kind of feel like we're the B duo, right? If it's Dolson and Aggro up there, then we're listen. We've got our own thing going.
Hindu, all right, yeah.
Aggro Hindu, you're right. Dolson doesn't make top 4. Good point, dude. Can't believe I almost gave that to him. Miff, let's talk a little bit though about which sets are coming up this weekend. Listen, he's on Paladins today. He can't fight back. Renegades eUnited, obviously the most important set. We're starting off with that one here, but I don't think that's the only one to keep your eye on throughout this weekend, right? Ghost and Radiance, even though it doesn't necessarily change the standings that much, still huge to see if Radiance are up to the task of facing Ghost heading into playoffs. I want to see about some of these other matchups throughout the rest of this week here as well. We already talked about how the Sanguine Obey set could help Obey potentially break one of the longest losing streaks we've had this phase, or if maybe Sanguine can confirm their spot there with it as well. So a lot on the line. And yeah, maybe I'm out of step there, pretending that, you know, they aren't guaranteed to win that match. It'll be their 4th win of the whole phase, Miff.
You know what? They're gonna win, and it will be the 4th one. It'll be a convincing 4th win. They're just gearing up for Worlds, man. Playoffs is chump change in Obey's mind. We're keeping our eyes on the big goal.
Hey, and maybe you're right? You can use playoffs to guarantee yourself up at the top, but it's not as if not being at playoffs means you're not going to make it to Worlds. They're certainly still going to have their chance at that run, though it will be a more difficult path. But to kind of keep things here in the presence in this eUnited Renegades matchup, I mean, if you heard me on the waiting room say that I think eUnited are the team that's most likely to make it up into that 6th place slot, I have them winning this set. Do you agree with me on that one? Do you think eUnited might come into this one a little bit too behind?
I think they can win this set, but it comes down to exactly one player. There's only 1 out of 10 players that, in my mind, is going to impact the outcome of this game, and it's going to be Lazra. If we get Lazra on a hot day where he's feeling good and he's getting impactful in the early, his Erlang Shen, the Retta Tasker, he's ganking out duo lane, setting up for Bara, that could very easily, I think that's essentially all it would take for Renegades to win. But recently, we've been seeing Lazra kind of lax a little bit, resting on his laurels, not really playing that active play style, and his team has been suffering. If we get that version, eUnited takes it handily.
Damn, can't get this man to talk about eUnited. Don't worry, I'll talk a little bit about them. Roll the clips for it if you still got them. Let's talk a little bit about Snoopy and what he's been doing here for this squad, Mifflin, or maybe we could talk a little bit about Herwin over there in the middle lane. I think eUnited have a lot of stuff that's going for them here at this point, even though I don't necessarily think it might be enough for them to beat like Ghost or the SSGs or the Radiances or those teams up at the very top. I've been saying Snoopy's playing some of the best Smite that we've seen from him. I think that Baskin kind of flips a switch sometimes, and you do get best player in the world or nothing from him, and if the switch is in the right spot, they have a great chance to win this game.
Look, you could get me to talk about eUnited, but you won't get anything out of me that isn't about a jungler. So we're going to talk about Scream, Finch. And I think that he's one of the most interesting players on that team because he's playing the most impactful role, and also because he's playing this unorthodox style. Recently, when you think about these strange junglers, Sino comes to mind, but I think Scream is right up there with him. Sometimes he's playing the Ao Kuang with the helmet build. Sometimes he's playing the Fenrir, occasionally the Poseidon jungle. And I think that wild card nature, that X factor that he brings to eUnited is something that they can rely on a little bit more. In recent weeks, he's been playing a little bit more so standard. And if teams are starting to prepare for standard Scream, I think that's a huge misplay. He could just come out one day and lock in the Nox and potentially win a game.
I do think that you've kind of honed in on the fact that these are 2 of our more inconsistent junglers, but at least that inconsistency does have the highs in it, right? We can't pretend that sometimes Lazra and Scream both don't just run that and completely take the game over, right? They absolutely have that potential. So I'm right there with you in thinking that what version of Scream or Lazra we get here could be a big indicator for how this set goes. So clearly, we know how you feel there about Renegades. Let's go ahead and move then in to those picks and bans for game number 1 for this all-important set. eUnited are in that first pick spot, and some things that you kind of want to keep your eye on. Obviously, the standard meta picks, but what about the Giannis? Is that something that Renegades feel like maybe they got to try and take away, or are they going to dare hurry to make it world-class here in such an important set? I'm excited to see what they think.
In recent weeks, I don't think Hurrywin's been allowed to play the Yanis by any team that he's come up against. I don't think Renegades should shift up that strategy at all. It's certainly his best pick, and he looks leagues better on it than even his second best, which is the Ra that Renegades have targeted out in that second ban slot. But now dedicating a ban towards that Ra, we might see a world where Yanis works his way through, because there's so much still on the table that's meta.
There are still plenty of picks. You do see the Cupid band coming through, so that is at least an eye towards one of those top-tier hunters, and there's the third, getting rid of this Rom. But Myth, as I was concerned, the Giannis is floating around. You made it sound as though it might just be a literal blanket mistake. Are you at that point where you think Hurrywin's Giannis that strong?
I think that Hurrywin's Giannis against teams that are a little bit lower in the standing can absolutely just win the game on its own. But we also know that Ven's capable of playing that pick, so if eUnited don't take it in that first slot, and they don't, they pick up the set, I think that Renegades could very easily take it for themselves. That set being a very strong flex pick, could go into mid, could go into jungle. We've seen it have success out of the solo lane as well. Hunter could play it. We know Snoopy's pretty good at that one. It's hard to lock down where that guy's going.
It is. This set has become kind of the flavor of the month pick lately, hasn't it? It's been really, I don't want to say really strong, but certainly really prevalent in the middle lane. We've seen all over the place, so perhaps that could be what we're seeing from it here. Meanwhile, Renegades, go ahead and grab for Jake this Sobek pick. I love Jake when he's on this pick, Myth. I love Jake when he's on just about anything, but particularly, I think he's looked a lot better on this Sobek where he can set up. And hello, Ratatosker here for Lasbra. That should get him involved in the early game just like you wanted.
It should. This spells danger for the United boys. Lazarus' best pick in my mind is this Ratatosker. Potentially the Pele comes to mind as well. Just as long as he's got that semi-global ultimate, he shouldn't really have to worry about positioning in the jungle. He should always be able to get involved in the early. And again, this Hebo pick doesn't really shine much light on the situation for eUnited's draft. Could very easily still be a set ADC or mid with Hebo out of the jungle.
Yep.
It's hard to lock down. Renegades, they're going to have to work their way around it. It's going to make this second phase of bans very hard.
I 100% agree with you that it's very possible. I think I might lean a little bit towards maybe not anymore with this draft, but I think you're right. Snoopy was kind of one of the first ones that showed us that set ADC. You've heard Aggro bring it up here a couple of times too, but back when they were able to have their challenger set versus the pro set, they took down an SPL team led by Mike and were able to find the win there. So maybe we'll see that set ADC come back here. Though Snoopy's playing really well in the Hunters, I don't know if you take him off of that pick. Now, Renegade's going to be taking this tier over into the solo lane in Myth. This one really surprises me. Almost still over there, though maybe not quite as valued after some of her nerfs. The Wukong, which just got banned, was still over there too. Cthulhu, lots of top-tier solo laners, but do you like the tier?
I do like the tier because it's Variety's tier. Had it been anyone else, I'm kind of not going to sing the praises of this pick, but frontline, backline disruption, he's going to bring it all. Hebo in particular should struggle a bit up against this pick if his beads are ever down. But Amaterasu going by the wayside for Renegades is not something new since the advent of Variety in the solo lane. I got to speak with Zeros a while back, and he told me from his experience teaming with Variety that he just doesn't like that pick. Blanket just does not like playing Amaterasu at all, and I think that's kind of been reflected throughout the year. Variety has not played it a lot.
Yeah, maybe it's something that, you know, a little slow for him or doesn't quite give him the same into the backline bruiser disruptive mentality that a tier would. But now some clarity, and notice that Renegades did not get bogged down in all this. Where's the set Hebo going? They go, you don't have a solo laner yet? We're banning solo lane, all right? They take the Wukong and the Nike out of the equation and kind of daring Baskin to get it done on something else. And they've already banned away his own signature pick in this Cerberus, so this has limited the pool a little bit for what he might play over there out of the short lane. But looks like it'll be the Achilles, giving him a chance to be aggressive and go toe-to-toe with Variety.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot, and it's going to make it a lot easier for ganks to happen in that lane. Tier sustain, a little bit hard to deal with, but when you have to execute, all of a sudden, there's potential for some kills with the help of a gank. But Scotty getting hovered, is that one of the ones that hasn't been picked all year?
I think so.
In the last week, bud, we got to knock one off the list.
That's crazy. Gore somewhere is furiously taking notes. I only have two questions. My first one is, are they allowed to use the avatar skin for this Scotty skin? And please use it if that's ready. You're telling me that wouldn't be allowed. Second, here, Mifflin, is Scotty? We haven't. What? Is this the right pickup here? Does she work with the attack speed build we've seen, or is it gonna be more like ability-based build from this Scotty? I mean, I know it's been a while, but what are you expecting from this Scotty pick for Barra?
I'm expecting unbridled aggression out of that duo lane up against Chernobog. He's actually got a very good matchup. Chernobog dashes into a wall, dashes out. All of a sudden, with recent Scotty buffs, Calder can just teleport onto an enemy, root him there, and Chernobog's either going to have to go up into the air or just die. I think it's a very interesting lane. And up against a set jungle, it's going to be hard to survive nearly as much. I think Scotty's going to struggle with that aggression if he is planning to sit on that tier 1 tower line, which he should be up against this Chernobog. It might open him up to some ganks, but as far as damage potential, the ability to win a 1v1, I think Renegade's duo lane has the edge.
Wow, with Cupid and Rom banned, it's not Jingwei, it's not Hachiman, it's Chernobog and Scotty. Looks like you're going to have to open up those god pools a little bit if you want to play Hunter. And Gore, I'm going to need you to do a little bit of grilling here from Aggro. He's on the podcast with Bera, so let's get to the bottom of this Scotty.
Oh, thanks a lot, Finch. That's right, it's me and Aggro here. And Aggro, I'm happy to have you here because it's a new look for Barracuda. Not just with the Scotty, also the nice fresh haircut. You can see him rocking down there on your screen. But I literally have no data points for it. This is the first time she's been picked all year, and it might honestly have to wait for just a second because eUnited, they're looking for some blood early on, but it looks like they won't be able to find it. What has she got? What is she bringing? Why Scotty of all things, and why now?
Look, Gore, I'll be honest with you. I did expect to see Scotty this week, but I expected her in a game that had a lot less on the line than this Renegades eUnited matchup. I expected it to be a troll pick, which we will see later on this week, almost no doubt in my mind. But all I've got for you is that Bera is a Scotty main. He loves this pick, and that's the only reason that I can think to really go to it, because it feels like it shouldn't be very good right now. Scotty has really been known for having more ability-based builds. I mean, you've got 4 damaging abilities in the kit. Call to your scales well off of ability power, so you really kind of want to go that direction a lot of the time. Trans, I don't think is very good right now. This Devo Gloves attack speed build is so much stronger. Can she really utilize that? I don't really know. It looks like Bera is at least starting with Spiked Gauntlet, but he could go into something more like Soul Eater or like Bloodforge instead. Right now he's all alone, though, because Jake is on tour on the tier support.
Yeah, you get the 408, and he's waiting here. A good ward by Scream. Not often you get to see that. I mean, you're just lurking, laying in wait to try and get something to happen. It looks like they will still go for the invade on the red buff. And so that's going to open up some opportunities for him. It's forcing Gino into an awkward position as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of focus from these supports, at least for the first, 5 levels overall in the duo lane. It doesn't look like you're going to be able to get that luxury this time around. But Bera may be about to find the hard way, depending on where Gino goes and how aggressive eUnited want to play here. Scotty's mobility isn't exactly what she's known for. I'm just excited to see her all together. There were 2 Hunters aggro that have not been played over here. The other one's Apollo. Maybe we'll get an Apollo from Bera. You never know. Either way, yeah. It's making me giddy with excitement because it's already an exciting set. And now, I mean, you get the tier support with the Scotty carry. I can't help but ignore the rest of the map because it just doesn't matter to me.
I feel like one of the main reasons has got to be the set. Like, I'm just really racking my brain trying to figure out why this draft for Bera. I mean, he gets the 10th picket, which is a big deal. You know, he got to look at the whole draft and say, this is the god I think I can do the most on. And I wonder if he really feels like Permafrost is going to mess with Set's all-in potential.
Yeah. That
the ranged root might cause him some trouble. I really don't know. I mean, it just feels like a matchup that, in my head, should be Set favored, but he does have to go against it in lane. It's a little bit more when it comes to those team fights, trying to set that Permafrost down and make sure that Hurry can't dive him very effectively.
There could also be some irritating scenarios. Maybe we'll see it if Jake gets a good Fearless pluck into something like the Permafrost. It kind of gives you more leeway, I guess, to get that CC chain going. And maybe it's just the pressure over here from having a warrior. Although Scotty, maybe not the first one I think of when I'm thinking lane pressure. It's going to be going their way. They get the little minions. Can they confirm themselves anything big? Find a kill is the real question. A lot of poke onto Snoopy, a lot of poke onto Gino, but it doesn't seem like anybody's getting fully locked down. Snoopy with some dashes will get him safely out of there. And that purple buff, well, stay standing for now.
And Scream's going to have to make his way over, knowing that Renegades has red timer, and of course they know purple's still up. just having Scream on this side of the map is going to make it much easier to confirm those for eUnited as Snoopy gets awfully low, but Jake completely out of mana now after expending that blink and some abilities, so no kill potential really for Jake anymore, at least until he hits level 5 or can get some mana and start just walking behind people. The old awesome Jake tier strat of I'm just going to walk behind you slowly and get you that way. It seems to work better for him than most. He is a tier specialist. Don't forget that when he first came into the league this season, he was playing this tier support and looking good on it. I don't think that this is a troll pick or anything like that. I think the Renegades really are breaking out picks that they think are sleeper or really good for them and hard to deal with in their most important set of the year so far. I really feel like this is what they think they can do the best with.
And you look at it, like, Variety's on the Sobek, something else that Jake has played a lot of, and Gino's on the Fafnir. It's kind of like a lot of the picks that he wanted maybe taken away from him. But this is one that it feels like you haven't got a lot of practice against. I mean, when was the last time we really got to see him pull it out? It's been weeks and weeks and weeks. I know it has to have happened at some point in Phase 2 because we've been going for 4 months now, but it just feels ludicrous that you can't really remember it. So I think that lockdown is going to help out, and plus the way he's playing it. We always talk about supports as kind of like the second jungle in a way. They're always roaming, looking to help, find ganks. Tier just does it a little bit better. Even now, he's going to look to lock down this Gino combo. There's going to be a Kraken as well. Heroin just erased Gino alive right now because of the Dragon 4, but it's not going to be for long. No, the jump just enough over the wall. But there's 4 members of Renegades over here. I don't know if you want to fight this Baskin and Scream. This might be the wrong neighborhood to be in. And if I'm a blue buff, I am quaking in my boots knowing that all of the Renegades are running over, and a good pluck from Variety. Going to be able to grab Scream right out of there. The ult doesn't actually get off there. The lockdown too good. The Renegades find 2 kills like it's nothing. They might even continue.
Wonder if Scream even knew that there was a blink pickup there for Variety. I think he probably assumed otherwise, as now Gino comes back and just dies again. Just mistake after mistake now for eUnited on this right-hand side of the map. Scream and Gino just get pulled for no real reason. I mean, you've just got to give up that blue. Look, Renegades, if they get first blood and blue buff invade, that's really good. They're in a really good position in order to convert that and be in a good spot. In order then to lose 2 members on the back end is not quite back-breaking, but closer than you would want it to be if you're rooting for eUnited. That is a huge start for Renegades in this game. 3-0, already up nearly 2.5K.
Yeah, it feels like the fastest I've seen a game go from even to 2,000 gold lead ever. I mean, it just feels like it all happened so quick over there. And then just like that, we're back to farming, sitting back on around the buffs. But this is actually interesting. I saw eUnited just now looking over towards that Gold Fury. We've seen a lot of later Gold Furies, like let's say 12 minutes plus. They don't really get picked up in those first 10 minutes, even though that's what we, go back to like the Hog days, right? That's where it was getting picked up the most. I think it's interesting that Renegades, especially with a lead like this, have put themselves in a position that they could feasibly walk over there and at least put pressure on it and force some awkward movements out of eUnited if they want. Because Heroin right now, I mean, he's hit that level 8 mark, which is where we mark for set as level 6. Maybe he can start impacting it, but so far it feels like Venenu's going to control the mid lane.
Venenu just has plenty of control now with this Cursed Orb finished off. I mean, Heroin sitting on just a mace and boots is significantly weaker than what Ven is going to be able to do right now. You think of an assassin in mid as a pressure pick, but that's really not always the case. You end up losing pressure a lot of the time just because you can't match that clear and your all-in potential isn't good enough, especially against someone like Poseidon, who, if you try and teleport in on him, he just Krakens his feet, you're probably dead most of the time. I like this Poseidon pick because of the set pick.
Well, I like this control that comes down once again from Jake Lasbra, even coming in to try and get the burst, the damage, not quite enough to get the kill just yet. They need one more hit.
No
the CC
way.
is just too good. Variety cleans up the kill onto Baskin Scream, able to get some good peel for the rest of the team, but it doesn't look like eUnited are going to pull anything back here. Even with Lasbra's low health bar, they just can't risk going that deep right now.
That was so close, though, that Baskin nearly ended up surviving. Cost Variety the blink to make sure that they could end up getting him, but they get him, and now it's 2-0-1 for Variety on the solo lane. Croc, if this was Renegade's strategy, though, to lean on this right-hand side, I wonder if Sobek was really the right pick. Can he leverage this lead as well as a traditional warrior can? Probably not, but getting him accelerated and rotating variety a little bit earlier is certainly a really good strategy. And I think there's a pretty decent chance the Renegades weren't intending on leaning on the right-hand side and getting a lot of pressure over there, but whenever they had the first blood opportunity, had numbers, rotated over, Scream puts himself in a position to die for free, then Gino does the same. Not necessarily the game plan, but Renegades more just taking what eUnited's given them.
We might just have to see, where Jake goes with the rest of this build, but considering he's, well, I guess 2 levels behind Variety, but on par with what we're seeing out of Baskin, who, by the way, gets plucked one more time. Good stun. And it looks like the follow-up damage. This time it's not going to be nearly as close. They're going to be able to clean that one up, no problem. Now Scream kind of left over here to just pick up the scraps. I mean, for Variety, like you said, maybe not getting as far ahead, but I'm looking over towards Jake. He's 1-0-3. He's part of 4 of the 5 kills. He's already on his way towards what I'm going to guess is maybe going to turn into a sledge, anything like that that he could pick up. He could maybe fill in that role, maybe kind of, I guess, swap with Variety overall. I mean, either way, you'll still end up tanky and being able to fearless everybody. So we'll keep an eye on this support that comes through. We already know he's aggressive. He's just hanging out. He's got 15 seconds on that blink. You know he wants some.
Definitely can try and put pressure on Snoopy, as it is a Bludgeforge pickup.
Lasbra?
This spot as Heroin has to be concerned. Late on the beats, trying to turn it onto Lasbra, but Variety with the good rotation gets there and makes sure that stays pristine for Renegades.
And I was going to talk about this Snoopy using that capability that Chernobog brings a little bit better than any of the other hunters. I guess Apollo might want to fight him for that, but again, hasn't been picked all year. Chernobog with that rotation able to pick up a kill. Now Gino's in an awkward spot, but we can see the rotation. We know Scream and Snoopy are right around here. This might be exactly the positioning he wants, and it looks like Renegades are going to try to run away. Blink used from Jake to try and create some distance, but Scream going to blink in, knock up Barracuda. Now Jake is the one who's isolated, absolutely erased, but there's the Kraken from Venenu. 1 for 1 so far over here in the duo lane. It seems to be going right in the Renegades' favor just because they only lose Jake.
Beautiful rotation over from Venenu, just easy as they come. Walk over, Scream's already overcommitted. I mean, they killed Jake, sure, but you're trading support for jungler. Honestly, at this point, maybe there's an argument that Jake is worth more than Scream. I mean, Scream only level 9, same for Jake. It's just the fact that Jake can afford to stay level 9. He doesn't have to worry too much about being, quote-unquote, off the map for that amount of time. Scream really does, because Lasbra is still on the map and farming very, very efficiently. This is the Renegades that we've seen be successful, the ones that are putting early pressure on the map, picking things like Ratatosker for Lasbra, not the wait for late game sort of compositions we've seen from them recently. Not that they can't make plays in that space, but I just feel like this is the Renegades' identity if they want to really be able to compete with those top-end teams. Putting pressure on the map early. Variety has a 4-level lead as a Sobek. That shouldn't be allowed. It's not allowed. It shouldn't be happening.
I mean, it's just absolute control. You look up, it's 5,000 gold difference. I mean, this is the kind of play I expect from Renegades, and maybe from the future. You know that your chance and spot in the playoffs is on the line. You've been comfortable in this 6th place spot for a while. eUnited have slowly dug their way up to be able to match you. I mean, this team on the blue side here started 0-10 this phase before a lot of those changes came through. And so they were comfortable. I think Renegades were able to sit there knowing that at least they had 2 other teams below them that they could theoretically rely on staying below them. But right now, this is the kind of seriousness and level of play I want to see from a team that is fighting for a spot in the playoffs. Don't just show that you can make it there, show that you deserve to be there. And so far, I think they're doing just that.
They're in a pretty good position right now. I mean, to have this kind of lead at 12.5 minutes is the game is in Renegades' hands at this point. Whatever happens from here on out, the Renegades have signed on for in some sort of way, shape, or form. So if they lose this game, it's really, they've got no one to blame but themselves.
Well, Jake gonna look for the lockdown onto Scream. Damage gonna be good from Barra, and they get rid of him before Gino can even transform. Now Snoopy and Gino are left in a very awkward position. 4 members of the Renegades here on the left side of the map. And that purple buff is absolutely going to go away. Now it looks like Gino's going to go with it. Lockdown, Kraken, maybe a little bit of overkill there from Venenu. But with a 5-man rotation, Variety over here as well. This screams for a Gold Fury. And it doesn't look like there's going to be much of a contest getting it.
No, not at all. I mean, eUnited is just playing so much more sloppy than what we saw from them against PK last week in their they had a 2-0 week last week to set themselves up for a win and in, which was huge. But this is just completely different than what we saw from them last week. I mean, what does eUnited expect to happen standing there in front of Jake whenever he's got Blink up? I mean, Scream doesn't have beads. That's free. If Scream doesn't counter Blink or use his ultimate, he's going to die. He doesn't. And he dies. And then Gino decides to stick around to try and get some poke damage off or contest purple. And of course he's going to get killed. I mean, it's just really, really bad decision making here from eUnited, which has plagued them in the past, but I think it was kind of the thought for a lot of eUnited fans was that they may have gotten past that point. They looked so good last week that maybe they had grown past that. Seems like they have not.
Celebrating a couple of good wins. The first game against Obey last week where things were a little rough for them, but they still managed to make at least the latter half of Game 1 look pretty solid. And then Games 2 and 3 were just so in their favor that you don't have to know too much about it to know that they won that one. Now, I mean, Baskin getting picked on again. He's been able to make up some of that level deficit, but it doesn't look like he's going to make up for this slash line. Looking to become 0-3 here. Great stun from him for the lockdown, but that looks like the damage from Variety will be enough. A big rotation. Kraken comes through, but Snoopy has made his way over here. The Dragon transformation from Gino is going to set his team up for damage, and Lasbro goes down. Double kill for the Hunter. We were talking about him in the waiting room. We're talking about him now. It's all Snoopy's rotation and power that he brings to the game. Jake forced to ult away. Variety does a nice little loop-a-doop to get himself out of there, and it looks like the Renegades will walk away, but not without some casualties.
And finally, eUnited seem to awaken. They get something going, but it's just too little too late. Look at what Barra does. He gets both duo towers for that rotation. Snoopy's dead to Variety over here and right. I don't really see a way that he can live through Variety's damage.
It's just taking a little bit of time, but there it is. You finally get there eventually. It's the benefit of the tanks. It's not necessarily that they do more damage than you. They just live longer, and that is...
No, it is that they do more damage than you. No, it's both. Yeah, it's both.
Okay, we'll take both here, even though, well, so far Variety hasn't even punched, I guess, outside of boots for a power item over there. Jake finally getting that Thebes. I was trying to say earlier maybe they'll swap roles in a way, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. As all in all, I mean, it's been the pressure that Sobek has had. 3 levels once again as he hits up to 17. Baskin, contrary to last week where he was a huge driving factor for them alongside Snoopy, hasn't really got a hand on this game.
He hasn't. And that fight for eUnited goes as well as you could ever hope. Ven died without using a relic, which is obviously not a great position to be in as a mid laner. You've got to find a way to extend your life a little bit. Ven did not. He insta-died, and eUnited still ended up behind from that fight that looked so good for them because it just took too long for them to start moving in this game. They lost too much on the left-hand side. Snoopy gets a little bit greedy, takes a death on the right, and now Barra's up 2 levels because of that. Look, eUnited, for what it's worth, and Herwin told this to Barra and I on the podcast last week, they have been horrendous in Game 1s this year. They really have. You brought up Obey last week where they get crushed Game 1, crush back in Games 2 and 3. That has not been an isolated incident for this team. So this does not tell me that this set is over by any means. But you can't be giving away Game 1s and expecting to reverse sweep every team, especially come playoff time.
It's that weird moment where, you know, like, I do this all the time. You lose one, you go, okay, warm-up game, warm-up game. Like, right, guys, it's just we were just trying to get fresh, make sure everything works out well. Unfortunately for them, so far hasn't been working out. Maybe we'll see the difference in Game 2 and 3 like we have historically with them. Maybe it'll just be this amount of dominance. I mean, I'm trying to think of it. What do you take away from your bans that you then ban on this screen? I guess, realistically, the Ratatosk is something that you're okay with banning against the Renegades, but I don't know if you lean on banning a Scotty or a Poseidon just yet. Maybe in the second phase. but that's looking way too far ahead. There's still a lot of opportunity to try and turn this around. It relies maybe more on Renegades making mistakes. They get that tier 1 in mid. Now they're putting pressure on the tier 2. No Fire Giant as of yet, so they're just trying to do this the old-fashioned way. Variety is going to try to go in. Good knockup from Scream, and Snoopy has made the rotation over, but they lose that tower either way. It looks like the Renegades are going to play it safe, call it at that, get the gold lead, get on out of there.
The old blink and stare at you strategy there by Variety. Doesn't use a button in order, doesn't blink, pluck, anything like that. Knows that he just needs to create space, and consider that space created pretty easily by the level 18 Sobek.
Looking to try and get a Primal Fury. Jake getting locked down and can't even ult away from that. And Renegades, what felt like a lot of control. Baskin finally makes it to the back line. Doesn't get the kill on Dabera, but gets the pressure needed. The team comes through. Picks up a Primal Fury. Maybe not the #1 thing on their list, but still, it's finally something that eUnited have picked up in terms of objectives to pull a little bit of favor back.
And look at the team fight recap, a little bit more experience in gold for eUnited as well. For what it's worth, in every 5-on-5, eUnited has looked competitive despite a 3-level deficit in solo, a 3-level deficit in support, a 2-level deficit in mid, a 1-2 in both ADC and jungle. And eUnited are winning some of these fights. I mean, Snoopy made it a 5v4 on the right in that big fight that we saw a little bit ago. But right there, Renegades just didn't keep track of Baskin, and he found his way into the back line, put some pressure on Barra, got both his relics, and still nearly killed him. And he was down by a lot. He's getting even further behind right now, but eventually Barra won't be able to get any more XP, and Baskin will have a lot to catch up with.
Well, looking at the carries as of now, and of course, as I want to start talking about it, it looks like eUnited are going to try to lock down Variety. That doesn't look like they're going to find that gap, so I'll turn it right back. Barracuda, we were questioning the build he was going to go for earlier. It looks like Snoopy is going a little bit of a different path, gone for the fail knot, maybe picking up some crit. Barra has gone for that attack speed overall. Also looks like he's picking up a hide to maybe get some mitigations, maybe just some protections online to keep him safe in the back line. But, you had mentioned this doesn't necessarily synergize as well with Scotty as some of the other builds we've seen in the past.
It isn't, but of the options available, I do think that Bear has done a good job here with this build in particular, because it gives you a lot of power, so Caldier and Scotty's scaling can come into play, while still building items that are a little bit more relevant for today's Smite. I mean, Bloodforge instead of the Devo Gauntlet, so going with the higher power option there. You've got Ichabal, which is a very high power item, which still gives him that attack speed. I think that overall, I seem to like the look of Bear's build enough. I wonder if he'll do enough damage, but for now, that shouldn't be too much of an issue because he's level 20, and no one on eUnited is matching that.
The only other level 20 in the game right now is Venenu, an item that we haven't talked about a lot in a while just because we haven't seen it too much. That Ring of Hecate picked up on for him. So keep an eye on Venenu's damage numbers throughout all this, as well as his net worth. I mean, him, Barra, both the players we're talking about, able to outfarm everybody else in the game. Barra's got 200 gold there on Variety as well. So a lot going up, and they're going to start up the Fire Giant as of right now. With a Kraken on your side, it's never a bad idea to try and take an objective. It does seem like it's not going quite the way they want. They want eUnited to make a mistake here, but I'm seeing a familiar pattern. It was just flipped earlier. Snoopy's going to be pushing on the left side while they have this going.
But he already ulted, and that's what's forced the reset. Now Renegade's going to go in.
They're going to be able to get aggressive lockdown from Variety, not quite there. Lasbra hanging out on Yggdrasil, and whether or not he can find someone, the answer's no. He lands out of nowhere, looking to find the kill onto Baskin. There's the Kraken on to Whirlwind, but neither are going to be able to result in a kill just yet. Barracuda finally able to pick up one. Jake looking for another here, does not get the Fearless onto Whirlwind, but the pluck is there. Either way, they've got the CC they need. 2 for 0 so far in favor of the Renegades. Snoopy, on the other hand, got a tier 2, and he's looking to try and pressure a Phoenix. Vin has to back to try and keep this defense going.
But he defends, and so the left side Phoenix still stands. Snoopy's ultimate isn't coming up for a little bit still. Thought he might have it a little bit more quickly because of that fail not CDR, and he does, but just a fairly long cooldown as a global ultimate. All in all, United get some gold back, it feels like, in that moment, and they stop Renegades from doing fire for now, but now that Renegades have gotten all 5 members back and close together, they should be able to secure this one, except for a 6 steal by Gino.
Well, he's hanging around. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to go for it. No jumps over the wall, no fancy play. Doesn't want to just throw his life away. Although if they had moved slightly further forward, they might have been able to find him anyway. You get the respawns here from eUnited. Like you said, you even up at least the map state in a way. 2 towers left standing for Renegades, only 1 left for you. But it feels like the Fire Giant, I don't want to say neutralizes the work they just did, but you know, you took a 10k lead down to an 8k lead now, and that's kind of pivoting between 8 and 9k as it jumps around, and it still feels like Renegades are running the show.
Renegades are just in a commanding position as they have been for the last, what, 15 minutes? It's felt like it's been a little bit of complete dominance for them. And you were talking about the drafts earlier. I really don't think it's draft related for eUnited. I mean, Renegades have come out with a good draft, don't get me wrong, but eUnited just made mistake after mistake after mistake when it comes to positioning or mechanics or where they should be on the map. Maybe you want to give Hurrowwind a more traditional pick in mid, but I just don't know how he was really supposed to make an impact whenever Jake, Lasbra, and Variety got so big right off the bat because of Renegades making plays.
I mean, yeah, Variety's 6-0-3, right? You can't really do much about that other than cry and hope the next game he doesn't end up 6-0-3. I think that's usually how you handle solo laners, because that's how I handle him in lane when I start to see him get that big.
Yeah, crying comes first, then complaining. Some would say those are the same thing, but I like to try and
involves less
separate them at the
tears,
very least.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Either way, the Renegades right now set up on this left side. Phoenix trying to go in. Variety taking a huge amount of poke. Maybe that 0 is about to turn into a 1. We'll see. He has his lurking in the waters. He's going to be fine there. Fearless comes through. Gino takes a lot of damage. It doesn't seem like the true lockdown exists. Renegades both mid and left, but neither in a dangerous position. Lasper gets a healthy chunk of that Phoenix there in mid, but not enough, I think, to really run away with it. They're still just hovering around right here, aggro, waiting to figure out how to go in.
Baskin's still only level 18 Gore. I mean, it's 25 minutes in. He's the same level as Jake in this game. The fact that he hasn't been able to farm at all is not a good sign for eUnited. I don't know how he's supposed to match the level 20 Lasbra Siege.
Or this level 18 tier going into the backline. Gino 4 levels down on him. That Phoenix is going to get popped. The Dragon Form comes out, gets a little bit of damage onto Lasbra, and now it looks like the Renegades going to go for a disengage, take the Phoenix, get on out of there. Mid is at about 3/4 health if they want to put pressure on them, but it looks like eUnited are ready to build themselves a wall to stop them, or at least thwart them for a little bit. Once Barrett gets in there, it's hard to control what that Scotty can do. Might just call it off there. At least a speed buff stolen. Maybe some pressure onto that tier 2 tower and right that I forgot was still standing.
This is a little bit safer here for Renegades, but a little surprised, Gore, because I think that their composition is really well suited to punish eUnited when eUnited's on the defense, because this is not a good siege defense comp by eUnited. They don't have particularly good wave clear without a traditional mage in mid. The mage they do have in the jungle is a low range sort of character that is not going to be able to step up and clear waves for you. Chernabog isn't going to be able to clear waves for you very well without using 2 abilities, which you really don't want to put on cooldown. So this is a pretty easy siege for Renegades, and they really showed that on that left side Phoenix. A little surprised they didn't just keep it going in mid, because I don't think that, even though eUnited didn't use a whole lot, I don't know what they have that is so scary in the first place. It's really only their poke damage coming from Hebo and from Set that should give Renegades any sort of pause, but I didn't think they got poked that hard.
Well, Fire Giants now just dissipated. Looks like they might push up over here on this left-hand side of the map to get some pressure going for them. But, you know, a lot of the game state right now is going to be dancing around the Fire Giant, right? Renegades trying to maintain control over there. Especially with these members on left, you're trying to get those fire minions, that fire wave up as far as possible to get some pressure. So for eUnited, I mean, if you have to leave someone behind to defend the base, to stop those fire minions, who do you send over there? And what are the prospects of winning a 4v5 around the Fire Giant?
Not good, but at least you've got Snoopy in order to clear out those waves and then still have his ultimate in order to rotate over and hopefully impact these fights. That was the big deal around that Fire Giant dance, was that Snoopy pulled the trigger a little bit too early on that ultimate when his team wasn't ready to commit, and so he can't be the first one in, so he's got to just stay where he was, lands back down, keeps on pushing left-hand side. Well, Now we know it's a 5-on-4 legitimately if we're on Renegades. So that timing needs to be a little bit cleaner for eUnited in the future.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of engages that come through for them that maybe open this up. It's weird to look at it because I'm looking down at the numbers. 14-5 in terms of the kills, 15,000 gold lead. The fact that I still can see a path, maybe not an easy path, but there is a path that United can find their way back into this, I think is impressive on their part. But like you said, there's a lot of early game mistakes. Now you're getting to the point where once everyone hits level 20, which, face it, for Gino, that's going to be a little while. But for at least Baskin, you can close that gap pretty well. Theoretically, a lot of the big major advantages, at least early on, are maybe taken away. So is that going to maybe make that difference? Is it all levels, or does it come to the gold?
It's gold is still important at this point. I mean, it's not as important, but the fact that now eUnited has their far side Phoenix down, Fire Waves there, even with that global ultimate, it's going to be pretty difficult to defend any sort of Fire Giant. Maybe Whirlwind is at a point where he can dive effectively. Maybe Scream is at a point where he can dive effectively, but they just haven't shown that ability. Every time Variety's been able to get in there and create space really effectively, they haven't been able to put enough pressure on him when it comes to his health bar. He's been able to stay too healthy throughout every single engagement. And if you can't handle the Sobek or the Tier, two of whom are very, very good at peeling for backline, they've got lots of displacement, I think it's going to be pretty hard for a character like Set to actually go off in these team fights. I think that was Renegade's whole plan, was to draft a backline that was hard to dive because of their mobility, or in Scotty's case, at least brings a little bit of CC to her own plate. And then you've got these frontliners that are really, really good at initiating if they get ahead, but even if you get behind, they're great at peeling with displacement. I feel like there's a pretty tough game for a Set, or even a Hebo, to really make those game-changing impacts.
And we haven't even gotten to see like the long chain of CC that could exist, right? But you heard it a little bit ago. Bellini was yelling at us to get back in the game, so we're going to do it. We don't want to upset the dogs any more than they need to be as they come through. Bara, Vin, and the rest of the Renegades still hanging out here on the left-hand side as they want to push these minions forward. Just a reminder, 30 seconds till that Fire Giant spawns back up, and Variety's still 6-0-3. They're going in on Snoopy, though. You had called it out. If he has his ult, that is dangerous, and they want the kill on the carry. They're going to be going in. The Whirlpool will make sure he stays locked in for that one. And now the question is, does that give them the opportunity to push for the game, or is this just for FG?
I think that this should be a Phoenix push if I'm on Renegades. You at least want to try and get a little bit more while you have the 5-on-4 for a pretty considerable amount of time.
There's the pluck onto Scream. Looks like eUnited are going to try to go in here. Dragon Form coming out from Gino, but it's not going to be enough. Or maybe it will be. Herwin finally makes it into the back line. A lot of damage onto Lasper. He's almost dead. Venenu is actually dead, but Scream goes down in the process. Barracuda trying to do everything he can for the team. Unfortunately, Jake is going to lose his life there. Now Variety just trying to keep that perfect score going. Stun onto Barra means that his might just be disappearing here. They try to go for the mid-Phoenix. It just doesn't work out.
And don't you get the feeling that Renegades have all the chips here, Gore, and they still can't find a way to easily win a 5-on-5? I just don't think we've seen it from them quite yet. Every time it has been closer than it should be. Right there, it shouldn't have any reason to be close. It's a 5-on-4 for Renegades with they're up over 10K. I know they don't have fire, but they had everything else available to them for the most part. They were down, what? Lasbra's ult, basically, and they can't win the team fight. That is not a good sign. If eUnited can get this left side Phoenix up, I think that fight does a lot for my mental in this game if I'm on their side. I think that gives eUnited a big boost morale-wise that we might be able to do this. I mean, we just won a 5-on-4 in their favor.
I almost start laughing, recognize, like, these guys can't even in. You know that you're safe. Your left Phoenix is about to respawn. Those minions are pushed up. You get yourselves, again, maybe not the most coveted of Furies, but a Primal Fury at this point at least maybe gives you some prospects to fight around a Fire Giant, depending on how things go. Renegades, speaking of which, are going to go ahead and start it up. Gino should spot this one out. Does the rest of eUnited want to respond, or are they going to let this one lay behind? And it looks like they're going to start to retaliate. That Fire Giant's falling fast enough. There's a Kraken available. Venenu should be able to secure this no problem when that comes out. almost a little too early, but it doesn't look like eUnited are going to be able to capitalize on it. Ult used by Lasbra for a disengage. Renegades grab the fire, get on out of there, because like you said, they need to make sure they maintain a solid grip on this, and right now it's loose at best.
And they get an enhanced fire, which will tighten that grip pretty effectively in my mind. I mean, that's such a big boost for them. And eUnited, you can tell they wanted to contest, but that was, you're gambling the game on that contest right there. You are either winning the game potentially. I mean, you have an exposed Phoenix that you could go through. Your wave is pushed up far enough in mid. I think they could have ended should they wipe Renegades pretty cleanly, but neither team had any relics to speak of, and that is just such a scary fight for eUnited, where they're a team that don't have that same CC potential that Renegades do. I mean, if you get knocked up by Hebo, you're in a lot of trouble, but if you get fearless by a tier into a Scotty or a Poseidon, you're just dead. So there's a pretty big difference in the threat level. I understand eUnited's hesitance.
It's a smart play, right? Always play where you have the 6th man and a Phoenix. Even if it's a weakened one there on left, you'll have some help from the map to try and level things out. But it is up to Renegades. You had mentioned it, enhanced Fire Giant. They don't necessarily need the minions they have with them, although it will definitely help as they push them up in left and mid. Lasbra once again in mid. They're doing the 4-1 split. It's all about the engage. And I'm looking at Variety. He's been the one to do it so far. Goes in, isn't going for the pluck just yet. In fact, he's just taking a lot of damage in the process. They don't get too much done with the Phoenix. It looks like that one's going to come out as moot. So Renegades just wait for a re-engage opportunity.
That was really well played by Snoopy and Screen. They peeled well for one another and got good damage. Getting the Blink and Thorns from Variety is a big deal, but Whirlwind has no relics at all in mid. I didn't see what happened in that skirmish, but that's really bad.
Well, Baskin going to get plucked away there. You had mentioned that about this Sobek. Doesn't matter if he's ahead or behind, he's going to have that amount of power. And you had mentioned it, not having the relics for Whirlwind. Locked down from Jake, but it's not enough just yet. In fact, Whirlwind's going in. He thinks he can get him. He's not going to be able to find the kill thanks to the knock-up. Lasbra is going to be able to turn that one around. Credit goes to Jake, but we saw where the work came through. Snoopy, with the rotation over, is going to get a lot of damage out here. Even find the kill, but now he's nowhere to be seen in left, and that means that the Renegades want themselves a Phoenix. It's already weakened. It's already down. In fact, they might find Scream on the back end. They just barely make it into the fountain. So Scream's going to be able to walk away, but how many more Phoenixes can you defend at this point? Variety and the rest of the Renegades that are alive are going to at least try to pressure down mid, and they don't get it here in aggro. I mean, I don't know what they can do. I guess just wait for these minions. They're going to re-aggress, but that's impressive from eUnited.
Just one auto, maybe two for Barracuda, but Variety off the mark with the pluck, knocked up. Here comes Jake, though.
Snoopy's low, but he stays alive. Same thing for Baskin, low, still alive. Running to the right, Phoenix gonna have a little bit of damage that comes in his favor. The knockup from Scream, looking to get some burst back. It looks like they're gonna stop the Renegades from fighting any further. Whirlwind's back in 5 seconds, and right now, even though it's 1, 4, and 7, that set has showcased how much damage he can still output. It's been, I want to say, a little bit of luck that it hasn't gone and gotten to pop off just yet. So, even though they lose 2 Phoenixes, it feels weird to say this, it still felt like a good defense from eUnited, but I think it's just because they stopped the game from ending, and they're still alive.
Yeah, that felt like Renegade's best 5-on-5 so far to me. I mean, even though they don't end, to get mid and duo side Phoenix, you feel like you should be wrapping this one up pretty shortly. But if Whirlwind had been able to save those relics, like I said, I didn't see what happened to him in mid, that he lost both. Because Lasbra hadn't blinked at him, he hadn't ulted. I don't know what would have caused him to use both in response to something, but if he had either one, I think that he probably kills Lasbra or puts a lot of pressure onto him. Jake still had blink, so I don't think he got blink fearless. I mean, it's tough to say, but either way, if Whirlwind can have that same kind of all-in onto Lasbra, because of a really good shell from Gino, for the record. That was really well played by him to keep Hurry alive and give him an opportunity to turn it around. You see the damage output this set mid still has. He's top of the team in terms of player damage.
He's been putting out a lot, and honestly, the fact that you've got one member of the Renegades who have been controlling this game for what feels like 30 minutes now, and then 3 members of eUnited, that, I think, showcases how much of a fight they've been putting up and where that damage is coming from. I mean, that trio we've been talking about a lot. If you get Whirlwind, Snoopy, and Baskin just into a comfortable position, it doesn't matter what Scream's doing, it doesn't necessarily matter what Gino's doing, those 3 will be enough to get something done for you. And sometimes you can even maybe, you know, relax on the heroin part. As long as Baskin and Snoopy are doing things, usually it brings the rest of eUnited up with them. And Baskin, you know, notably, what, 0-3 earlier, 0-5 not too long ago, has been able to find some kills. I think he might be a priority target for the Renegades.
He's starting to put in a good amount of work, putting pressure onto Barrett and Ven a little bit better than he was before, but still hasn't been able to combine with Scream, who I have found very ineffective so far in this game. 1-4 for him, only barely above Lasbra in player damage, but to be fair to Scream, there's a pretty big pile-up right there in the middle. All those players are pretty close.
Fire Giant started up by the Renegades and trying to maintain control here. Looks like Calder was tanking it for a little portion. They're going to back off, not feeling as confident in this one as they have in the past. And like you said, it's that Snoopy. Once he's not out of there, or I guess not in there now, they know that they can re-aggress without having to worry about it. That debuff from the Chernobog, it's enough to really change a fight, especially if he does follow up on it. He goes into the back line, could cause some trouble for Venena.
It's forced to reset each time. I still think that the timing hasn't been perfect. You kind of want to spring the trap, so to speak, but he's got enough CDR now that you can kind of afford to take risks like that and just make sure that Renegades aren't getting the Fire Giant to a point where they can then Kraken to secure. He's got 30% now between the Fail Not and the Malice, so he's in a position where that's going to be up sooner rather than later.
And, you know, we have the time. The Malice kind of catches me off guard. I mean, we've seen some Deathbringers a little more recently. Rage used to be the hotness, although it's fallen off. Where does the Malice come in here for the Chernobog to really make maybe a potential game-ending and game-changing difference here for Snoopy?
I think it is just about being able to use that ultimate a little bit more. Gives him crit, power, and a little bit of CDR. Also, Chernobog 2 was a very powerful stim, but one that doesn't last very long. And so if you can make sure that you're getting that up more consistently, I think that could be a really good look for him.
Well, I'm looking at Snoopy. Unfortunately for eUnited, the Renegades are back there looking at Fire Giant. They get it again. Now we're almost at a 20,000 gold difference. And typically, 20,000 gold at any point in the game should be enough to just really end it for the other team. But eUnited still able to try and mount one defense. Eyes on Snoopy and Heroin, the two that have been maybe getting into the back line, causing the most trouble so far, alongside Baskin to make the big difference. It's a 3-1-1 split from the Renegades. Lasbra over there and left, Jake in mid, the other three hanging out over here, and it's forcing an awkward split from eUnited as well to try and find the defense. If you can't beat them all together, then go ahead and separate them up. Now, Lasbra looks like he wants to rotate, but Renegades so far haven't been able to find that pluck.
Lasbra can likely just blink in to let Phoenix and auto it down. I mean, EFG is so much power. You can do that kind of stuff, even as a tank.
Well, there it is. It's going to go down there. The rest of eUnited going to aggress in onto the Renegades. Heroin gets one, but loses his life for it. Mid for mid as they keep it going. But Barra loses his life to Snoopy, who's now getting aggressive even further into the back line. Lasbra's going up into the skies. Can he make a game-saving play, a game-ending play at this rate if they get the damage? But no, he takes way too much in return. A great Fearless from Jake finds a kill on the Scream, and it's him and Variety versus the world, it feels like, trying to find a way to lock down Snoopy and get this kill. The crits coming out from the Chernobog just feel too much, and Lasbra wants the game-ending play. They find Snoopy. They don't have anyone to defend this. He's taken half the Titan all on his own. Looks like Variety and Jake are going to have to come in, but aggro, they're so low, even with minions, even with Fire Giant. This feels risky. They're going to try it out, and they have the damage, but it looks like there's too much from eUnited. It's on the blink of death. Baskin finds one, Baskin finds two, but it's not enough for eUnited. Baskin almost does it with the help of Gino, but Variety and the minions make sure they get it done.
Man, that was as close as it's going to get. I mean, Heroin was up in about 10 seconds. That's a little bit, but maybe if that Titan could have just reset, that would have been enough for eUnited. But frankly, even though Renegades had a lot of trouble ending it, they earned that one a good 25 minutes ago at that point. eUnited played far better than they had any right to come teamfight phase. It's clear that they aren't struggling in that department too much. They were just playing cards down every single time. They have got to have a better early game than what they did in that first game. That just won't cut it.
Yeah, it feels, what, 5 minutes in, you get this massive rotation from the Renegades. Again, goes from even to 2,000 gold lead, and we never saw that dissipate. We never really saw it disappear for them. So eUnited, maybe like you said, having to change up some of the early game draft, especially when you're able to defend, what, 20,000 gold down and still make it close, definitely doesn't seem to be the issue there. It is entirely in that first 15 to 20 minutes where the Renegades are able to pull ahead. And so I guess for you, going into Game 2, what are some major differences you'd like to see?
I think that you can go with something fairly similar. I really don't think it was that draft dependent. It was just decision making. You've got to see better decisions from Scream and from Gino and from Baskin in particular in the early stages. I think those three just fell far too far behind to really be effective in this one.
Well, the desk is going to break down Game 1 and then actually tell us what we'll see in Game 3, but it'll be on the other side of this break.
Welcome back to the SPL, and I am smiling because I was not a part of that eUnited solo lane that got camped from like minute 1 of this game. Renegades were able to find the win with a dominant, and I mean dominant early game. Things slipped away from them a little bit though, around that like 25-minute mark and onward. This one got stretched out to 39 by a well-played eUnited defense, but for the most part, Myth, this one was controlled by Renegades from the very beginning.
It was. The point of interaction was very early on in that game. We're talking 7,000 gold up at the 10-minute mark. Those are nigh unsurmountable odds that eUnited had to contend with. It was a very Ghost-esque game from Renegades as well. We saw them jam down pressure through the soul lane, then use it to invade the red buff. Jake played a roaming role. I'm not willing to call this a support, by the way. The 408 was playing jungle primary, actually, because he was doing so much for his team. Maybe Lazaro was secondary jungle in that one.
It did feel as though that was the case, right? I mean, how effective was this tier from Jake this game? And then he was kind of passing the baton over to Variety. He and Jake controlled these team fights well, setting up for Van and Vera to find their damage. And I do think you kind of are right to hint on the fact that Lazaro was sitting as a bit more of a secondary jungle this game. I know that he was nearby for a lot of those early games, but I think that's about all you can say, right? Still maybe a bit more we'd want from him in some of those early game ganks, but you cannot complain, right? He set up his team to win with where he was spending his time in this early game. And Renegades now find themselves up 1-0 in a set that I thought was going to go towards eUnited. Maybe not easily, but certainly a bit more competitive than the first 20 minutes of this game looked. I mean, Renegades were in complete control with this early pressure, and eUnited, their set mid didn't seem to do a whole lot for me until the late game. Snoopy got involved and was kind of a nice hydration pack for them, but they needed him to come over there a lot.
They did, but it's not all doom and gloom for eUnited. It's not all green pastures for Renegades. In that late game, despite being up 16,000 gold at one point, knocking on the door of the Phoenix from the 28-minute onward, Renegades still struggled a little bit in those late game team fights. It felt like, and Aggro alluded to it mid-cast, eUnited were able to fight back in a situation where they truthfully had no right to do so. Their late game defense draft, lacking that traditional mage on a mid, should have been a little bit weaker, but still they were able to repulse this Renegades push time and time again. If Renegades come into game 2 and don't establish themselves the same lead, I think eUnited showed me enough, at least in game 1, that they could fight into it despite whatever their draft is, despite the lead, as long as it isn't, I don't know, 5 digits at the 20-minute mark.
That's a good point. Renegades are known to struggle a little bit right around that 20 to 23-minute mark, but I think they're able to kind of make it past that thanks to doing so well in the beginning of the game this time that it was almost irrecoverable for eUnited. And I say almost because they sure did manage to get close in that game. Let's go ahead and move to the picks and bans, though, for game number 2. You heard Gore was wondering what was coming next, to the point where he was excited for game number 3 if we make it there. But I think he had a good point, right? eUnited, I think we'd be very surprised if they don't at least find their way to a third game. They're so good at getting the game 3s. I think they came in with a lot of momentum here to this set, and Myth, I had them slightly favored in this set even.
I think you're right to do so as well. I think the community should have also had them favored. They've been looking pretty good recently with the advent of Baskin, and already we're seeing maybe some of that leadership come into play with a targeted ban. That Ratatasker had a lot of pressure in the solo lane. Baskin in particular probably very upset about it, so he's going to go ahead and target that one out in that first ban slot. I like this as a small pivot, and again, that's one of Lazarus' best picks. Now what's he going to fall back to? Potentially the Pele, or even maybe the Thor? It's a pretty far step down from the Ratatasker.
It certainly doesn't give him that same global presence. But you and I kind of talked about this backstage, right? A little bit of how maybe we saw Snoopy picking up the Chernobog so that he could be involved in fights earlier, as if he felt he needed to be able to cover up some gaps that might materialize, and they did indeed materialize. So I think that Chernobog pick got some value. We'll see if it comes out here, but this time, only the Cupid banned, that Cupid slot taken up by the Rat, as well as one other slot, the Tier, getting banned here as well. And I think this makes some sense, man. Jake was a menace in that game. Ban him away and make him do it on some other pick. You and I thought both that Tier might be going to Variety, but I think they pulled off the okie doke and put a support instead.
Yeah, if it's not going towards the 408 in the future, I think that Renegades just probably aren't going to be picking it in the future. That's how well Jake played on that pick. But now that's so many bans just dedicated towards the targets that there's a lot of really strong picks available. Persephone, Amaterasu, even the Sobek, who's had a slight resurgence recently, is very popular and still available. And Renegades pick up the Sobek in response to eUnited's picking up that Cupid for themselves. But it leaves so much on the table that I'm worried that eUnited are going to really need to get value out of this next 2, or they're just going to fall behind in the draft.
Yeah, I'm also curious about where this Sobek is going. I wonder if we only saw it in the solo lane because they had a warrior support planned, as it looks like Renegades are going to take their hand at the set mid this time around. I don't know, I wasn't particularly impressed with it. I know you're a big fan of set mid once he's able to establish a bit of a lead, so maybe that's just what we need to see for whoever ends up piloting it. If it goes into the mid this time, it would be Venenu.
It would be, and if they get the same lead as they did last time, this game could end at the 21-minute mark. That's how oppressive a Set from ahead is. There's such a small amount of counterplay because Set has the ability to close gaps so easily. His damage and burst is so high. He's diving towers at level 6. It's so hard to deal with, especially against mages that are a little bit lacking in mobility. If you've only got one telegraphed dash or jump, Set is going to eat you up alive, and Persephone is one of those picks.
Ooh, interesting. The Amir coming in, and Myth, that's making me think this is going to be a Sobek over in the short lane because, I mean, we know that Jake likes to play this Amir. Perhaps Variety could take it over there, but I don't know. At least I'm a little bit doubting it here at this point. I'll get your thoughts on it in a sec. As I think eUnited have done kind of as you wanted them to and found a way to make up for those targeted bans with these top 3 picks. Cerberus is the comfort pick for Baskin in solo. Cupid, the best hunter remaining, and Persephone, just flat out the best mid laner there is. I think eUnited are feeling pretty good about where they are in this draft phase so far.
And they absolutely should be. They've given themselves some late game win conditions, so even if Renegades does get off to a similar start as game 1, we've already seen that eUnited is going to be able to hold on and take it into the late game team fight pretty well. And now with a traditional mage like Persephone, it's going to be a lot easier to find those defenses on your Phoenix. You don't have to dedicate yourself to fully diving outside like we saw from Hurrywin in game 1. And Renegades, interesting pivot, taking a little bit of a low-tier hunter, the Apollo. Gore's got to be having a field day, man, with these first picks in the league. It's strong. It's got a global. It's got decent survivability, but it takes forever to get in the air. And up against the Cupid, it could be a death sentence.
It's true, and listen, Bear is not going to pick these picks just to mess around at this point in the season with how important this set is. So, just like we saw from the Scotty, he trusts this Apollo pick, and I do think it might be just a bit slept on, Myth, but I think I hedge my bets more towards you in worrying about its value. But hold on, because now we've got this Hell and this Persephone, so Myth, I mean, I gotta think this is Osiris jungle then, and maybe Hell over to solo, or I'm not so sure. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think you nailed it
Or
down.
Osiris
jungle. I'm hoping not Osiris support, but that's actually something the 408 has played in the past, but that would leave us with Cerberus or Hell jungle. So I'm going to go ahead and vote for the world that I hope exists. So that's going to be Osiris out of the jungle, Hell inside of that solo lane, and Cerberus support. And Renegades keeping this unorthodox draft rolling picks up the Morrigan. We thought it was going to be set mid, and it still could be, but that opens you up to Morrigan jungle, something that was picked around the advent of Morrigan, right when she was put into the game, but hasn't really seen much play since then. Both teams with a very strange draft.
Well, what do you think of the identities here? Renegades feels pretty pick-based, and eUnited pretty team fight-based.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Any team that's going to have something like a Hell is waiting for that late game where they can make use of that sustain, whereas a team with Morrigan is looking to just catch Hell walking around the jungle.
We'll see if they can execute it on it. eUnited need to win game 2. I'll get it down to Gore, see if they do.
And just like that, Barracuda takes my list of gods that haven't been played this year, slices it in half in just 2 games. But, you know, Aggro, I can start this one off pretty much the exact same way. There's no data points for this Apollo literally all year in the SPL, so what can he bring to this game to maybe make a difference here for the Renegades?
He did it really well in the last game, which was split push whenever Snoopy rotates. Apollo can do that better than the Scotty can, for sure. That's the main thing that I'm going to be looking towards. I think Apollo is pretty good, but I don't know about this Cupid matchup. This does not feel like where he should excel. Oh, he got his dash?
Well, they're going to get aggressive early on. I mean, there's a heart bomb coming back, but it looks like the damage is in favor of Jake and Barra. They're not going to be able to find themselves a first blood, although maybe I speak too soon. He gets that passive online, and we know how much that can be devastating. But now try starting to fight your minions, fight this first wave, and you're below half HP. Gino tries to get some of that pulled right back in their way. And I will say, Aggro, I don't want to take credit for this, but I think it was like last Monday I was interviewing Barra, and I was talking to him a little bit while we got things set up about the Scotty and the Apollo, and he admitted that he does like both of them, and you talk to him all the time, so you know, like, he loves playing these picks. We just hadn't seen him for whatever reason.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for some time, but hey, 1-0 on the Scotty. Maybe he can go 1-0 on the Apollo on top of that. This is off to a great start. I mean, they've got to try and make sure that this red buff invade goes their way, but they've got the numbers in order to ensure it, except that Scream's got the 2 over the top. So that's a huge win for eUnited that Renegades aren't able to keep on pressuring, at least that much, on these buffs.
A big difference between Game 1 and Game 2 now, just in that. I mean, that should level out Herwin a little bit, as well as give Scream some experience that he was lacking last time. Speaking of Scream, he's over here coming to loop around. Gino's incredibly low, but Bera is incredibly slow this time. It's up to Jake to try and do the body blocks. The nice jukes in the minions waiting for Lasbra to come over. The moves will get him out of there. Now Scream's out of position. Lasbra gets the kill, and they're going to come right back in for this one. Gino's going to get locked down. It should be a second for the Renegades. One onto the Hunter, one onto the Jungler, and that is a gank gone wrong for eUnited.
No doubt about it. Great play by Barracuda to hide in those minions. I think the Osiris auto chain might done enough for him in that moment, but clearly not. Another great start to this game for the Renegades, and this time it's on the opposite end of the map, setting Gino far behind this time around in comparison to Baskin. Maybe you'd rather set the hell behind overall, but hey, if you can get that early first blood onto Scream and then a follow-up kill onto the support, you're not going to be feeling bad about that.
We'll have to see where they keep that pressure going. I'm actually interested. I mean, we don't see Morrigan a lot, but she's always fun to watch. We don't see Persephone a lot, but she's also always fun to watch. So I think that mid lane, and this is maybe teeing it up for you, resident mid laner aggro, to just talk about. But I mean, that seems like it's going to be fun. Baskin, though, maybe kind of, you know, messing with things, right? Normally we're used to maybe 2 mages, but 1 coming out of the jungle. I mean, how does this this Hell kind of fit into this, I guess, overall? I mean, she's not going to be as tanky as a Sobek, and she's not going to be as damaging, at least it feels like, as those 2 in the mid lane. How is she going to slot into this?
It's really just about that utility, and of course the healing, but the cleanse is going to be key in this game as well. And I think the reason that we see Baskin go to this Hell pick here is that variety on the Sobek can't really punish you that hard. I mean, sure, the innate anti-heal is annoying, but for the most part, he's going to need help in order to kill you. If you're going to get a free lane, why not pick the thing that outscales really, really heavily? You know, you don't want to be the smaller sort of mid-range god. You don't want to be that character that doesn't do enough to punish early and then gets outscaled come late game. And I think that was kind of what we saw out of that Achilles. This time, Baskin just says, hey, I'm going to ward well, make sure that I don't die to ganks. At least that's the plan, though we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition here. As long as he doesn't die to ganks, this should be a really good lane for Baskin to scale up and make a late game impact.
An important caveat right now, there's going to be the pluck, and there's Lasbra coming in. If you don't die to ganks, you'll be fine. Unfortunately, well, as of right now, he's dying to ganks, so we'll have to see if he can level out or if we'll find ourselves back into the same story as game number 1. It looks like they're trying to make rotations like they did in game 1. 3 members, not 4 this time for Renegades, but either way, their goal seems to be the same. Kill Baskin, strip whatever you can from the jungle, and force eUnited to play just uncomfortable all around. But right now, I think the important part outside of that kill is level 5 starting to come online. Very important for Vin, very important, I think, for Herwin, but also for Bera. I mean, we had mentioned it with the Chernobog, his ability to rotate, and I'd said that the only person outside of him that could potentially do it is the Apollo. Do you expect to see this all make a huge difference late game? You had mentioned the split pushing potential. Is that going to play a big role, knowing that Bera can kind of be in 2 places at once? Well, we'll have to hold that thought as Jake gets aggressed on. The jump from Scream isn't going to get you out of there this time. Venedu going to be able to find the kill. There's Herwin looking for some lockdown. Jake's still low. Baskin in a position to try and get aggressive, but it doesn't look like eUnited want to jump in too readily. And a good wall from Jake will peel him out of there. And Gino not in a position to lock anyone down.
I mean, so far, Gore, I don't think that eUnited's going to have time to worry about Barracuda's split push if things keep going this way. Scream is just having a really, really rough day at the office as Bera is going to use that ultimate aggressively.
Oh, wow.
Looking for Snoopy, but I don't think he can kill him. Snoopy's just too healthy.
And he's going to have that tower. And even at level 6, I don't think we're going to see him dive under there. Meanwhile, we do see them dive in the tier 1 on the right-hand side. Baskin stays alive. Variety's low. Scream has been having a rough day at the office. This would definitely help turn things around. Not going to be able to find the slow. Not going to find the stun. Might be able to find themselves a blue buff. I don't see Renegades contesting this one. Ultimately, though, it's going to come out as a moot point. They steal one away. Baskin doesn't seem to be around to pick it up, and Variety has Baskins around his waist. So either way, I think Variety's happy with how that one goes.
Scream really needs to respect Jake. Yeah, just gives him the farm, says, I'm sorry,
Just
sir.
level up.
Please allow me to walk out. Venenu misses the stun, but has the transformation.
Now he's going to be able to get aggressive. Good wall from Jake. Forces the Lord of the Afterlife. Scream's not making it out of that one. Variety with a great rotation, but now Vin is incredibly low. Has to dance around. Stays alive. Baskin going to be the one who looks to fall next. Good lockdown from Heroin, but it's not enough to lock down Lasbra. No mana here for the mid laner. So Heroin's going to have to back out of there. But Renegades, I mean, 6-0. Stop me when you hear something that you haven't heard before. They're up 6-0. They've actually got 3,000 gold this time as opposed to 2,000. It feels like a lot of the repeats from Game 1 are starting to happen here.
Scream knows that Osiris ult range got buffed, right? By the way, Heroin is dead in mid. He has no mana. Can't do anything. This has just been abysmal so far from eUnited. I don't think there's any other word for it.
Well, they're going to be able to pick up a kill onto Lasbra. Heroin, of all people, being able to get that. I think, honestly, beneficial to him, considering he had no mana, no health in that lane. We'll have to see if it does anything. Scream locked down once again. No Lord of the Afterlife, so he can't not jump away that time. And unfortunately, it just feels like it's systematic at this point from the Renegades.
It just is not eUnited. This is not the way they've played when they play well, and it feels bad for the Renegades almost because they're not going to get as much credit for how well they're playing, and they are playing really, really well. But I think the bigger story from so far in this set has got to be how poorly eUnited has played. I just don't think that. My job isn't fun when it's like this, to be honest with you, Gormizer, because what am I supposed to say? Scream's supposed to jump away instead of up down 2 times in a row so he doesn't fall behind. Baskin's got to know that he can't step up to a wave halfway up on that side of the map whenever Lasbra is unaccounted for. It's just fundamental decision-making and then mechanical mistakes from eUnited, and it doesn't matter what team they're going up against. It's not that I think any team could have beaten eUnited with the way they're playing right now. I wouldn't have liked their odds against the NASCC with the way that they've played so far.
Well, maybe I'll tee you up on, maybe too early to look at this, but it feels like Jake's going into a Pestilence really early on here. It's not necessarily the top tier anti-heal item that we see a lot. You know, Contagion, I think a lot of people have preferred over that. Divine Ruin being skipped over, as well as Brawlers there for the jungler, as well as for the mid laner here for Renegades. Do you think this Pestilence is going to fill the void that they need?
It's going to be solid. I mean, you've got 3 damage dealers that are magical from eUnited. You've got the Cerberus, the Persephone, and this Hell. So just getting magical protection in general is going to be very helpful. I could see a world where Jake actually finishes this into a Heartward Amulet, because there is so much magic damage, and then allows Variety or someone else, or he grabs it himself later on in the form of a Pestilence or a Contagion. I do think the Renegades need to get into those anti-heal items. I mean, Venenu should be going Divine next. Lasbra, I think, probably should have gone Brawlers first, Jotuns afterwards if he really feels like he needs that CDR. But I would expect a Brawlers from him pretty much no matter what. Maybe there's a world where he goes Toxic instead, but he needs anti-heal for sure.
All right, now the aggression over here in the duo lane looks to be going the way of Snoopy. He finds the 1v1, but it's over on the right that things aren't going quite the way United wanted. Another beautiful wall from Jake. Lasbra is going to be able to get the lockdown on that one. Heroin, though, the first one to die, means he's still sticking around for a little bit to try and help his team out, but it's not going to work out well. Double kill for Lasbra, 3 kills down on the side of United. Now it looks like they're going to make it 4 as a triple kill comes out for Lasbra. The ult to pay off there at the very end. No health, no mana, but we see where Snoopy is. He's on the other side of the map, and that gives them some control, but realistically, you can only go for a Pyromancer. Accurate, we're only 10 minutes in, and there's been this much action.
It's all come up Renegades, pretty much. The one lone light in the darkness has been Snoopy, who continues to play really, really well. Felt like everyone on United was playing well, but Snoopy was certainly headlining them last week. This week, he's the only one that it feels like has really been able to show up and do what's expected. Scream's 0-5, Lasbra 7-1. And really, I thought that this jungle matchup was going to be key here, Gore, because as I've already covered, every game is jungle diff no matter what. But in particular for Renegades, Lasbra has really, really struggled lately. I thought that he has always been a good early game jungler, but has historically struggled throughout his whole career come late game. his early games have not been good enough recently. So I thought that was going to be a main key for eUnited to be able to actually pull ahead in this set. And credit to Lasbro, man. He has been playing super well.
Well, they're going to try to equalize things out here. They get the Gold Fury, but can they get anything else? Snoopy, lockdown, Fields of Love. Going to be able to find the Mez onto 2. Ended early there by Scream. I don't know if he needed to do that. Either way, they get themselves a Gold Fury, and they seem to get out alive, which at this point is more than they can say about pretty much any other engagement. The longer this goes on, though, I mean, you had highlighted it, even though Renegades now with less of a lead, but still a pretty massive lead in their favor, once Baskin joins the fight, I mean, we've seen what Hell can do to change things. And you had highlighted it earlier, if you just get ganked and killed the entire time, maybe things won't go your way. Now 0-4-0. I don't even know why I was asking and talking about her in a positive light, because it just doesn't seem like Renegades are going to let her get to that spot.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. I mean, Lazarus just played the map properly. Variety, and this has got to be the sweetest revenge. I mean, just solo diffing Baskin into oblivion so far this set.
Well, Snoopy's locked down behind the Tier 1 tower. I don't know if they have the damage for this one, even though they have the stun. Scream coming up in the background. 3 levels down on Bera. He's going to be able to find himself a slow. No, instead just goes for Jake. Finds the kill onto the support. It's something. So they're going to be happy with that trade and keep things going.
Yeah, it's something is right. Scream finally finds himself on the board by going to the one side of the map that you should go to. Look, sorry, Baskin, but your lane is over, bro. That side of the map is now property of the Renegades. We've lost it. It's like you had to mortgage it in Monopoly, and then you have to give it up to the player that you landed on their space. It feels horrible, but the rich get richer sometimes, and that's the case for Renegades here. That right side of the map is their property now. eUnited, their only space where they can fight is around Snoopy. So if I'm Renegades, are you making the call to just kill Baskin over and over and over again? Maybe. I think it might be better served to head onto this left-hand side, and knowing that Snoopy's shell is now down, find Venenu or Lasbra another opportunity to rotate over to this left-hand side and shut it down, because that seems to be the only bright spot right now for eUnited.
Yeah, it's when you have 13 kills and 11 of them are on the right side of the map. If you just classify Scream as over here with Baskin, you maybe want to turn some attention elsewhere at that point. I mean, I guess it's difficult to lock down someone like Herwin, plays pretty safe already, although they've been able to do so somewhat consistently. I mean, him, Gino, it really is Snoopy right now that continuously pulls the reins back in favor of eUnited. And this Cupid, I mean, you had kind of mentioned it, Bera, even though he's playing something that we've seen him play for literal years, I mean, go back to Season 1, you'll see him pick up Apollo. It's not something that is new to him. It's just not something that you'd necessarily think of in a matchup against Cupid. So for Lasbra, this could be a very big kill. At least gets the Fields of Love, and he's actually gonna go in for it. He's looking for the damage. Scream is over here. You're in the 1v2. I forgot Barracuda can come in from anywhere. Scream is the one who made a mistake this time. Lasbra gets one, Barra gets one, and they're gonna be able to pull this left-hand side right back into their favor. Gino, I don't know if this is actually gonna be beneficial to you. He gets a lot of damage down onto Barracuda, and a rotation from Herwin. At least gets the Hunter out of here for the Renegades, but I don't know if it's going to be enough because Venenu transformed and he's going to be flying in through the skies and crashing down onto Herwin. That's another kill for the Renegades, and now you've got 2 Apollos looking to try and push down your towers. That just doesn't seem like it's going to go well.
Man, this one, you can nearly put a bow on it, Gormizer. I mean, the Renegades, you can basically put seed number 6 in Sharpie next to their name right now with the way that they're playing. They are just clicking. Beautiful setup by Lasbra. Goes exactly where I think he should, which is to that left-hand side. Make sure Snoopy can't continue to be an impact on this left-hand side of the map. Barracuda's right on time with his ultimate. Perfectly timed to bait in Scream. And then Venenu's there. Jake made a great play to body block that Grasp of Death to make sure that Barra stayed up and healthy. Renegades are just working right now, and eUnited is not.
All cylinders firing, at least on one side of this one. 16-3. Only, what, 6K gold? That's the 7K, 8K as it continues to go up here. So they pick up either towers, aggression. That tier 1 and mid might as well not exist. Tier 2 and left was taken down. So they do keep finding their jumps. And at this point, Aggro, I don't even want to call it over. I do just want to highlight. Fastest game this year is about 18 minutes, is 17:59. The fastest game in Phase 2 was 18 minutes and 36 seconds. So, I mean, Renegades, they're working on a clock, but technically they could still hit those marks if they're able to get just aggressive enough. But they have to win a pretty big fight over here next to the Oni Fury to do so.
Seems like eUnited's drawn their line in the sand. This is the fight that they feel like they've got to risk it all. They're not... Look, this is not a favorite fight for them by any means, but I don't think they're getting a whole lot closer in this game. I think this play makes sense. Group up while Baskin is maybe able to do something in this game. He's actually picked up Phantom because of these Ymir walls that have been so impactful from Jake. But look at Renegades. They aren't letting eUnited group up and force a 5-on-5. They're just letting Lazarus split. This is going to be a tier 2 for free.
I mean, they landed on a daily double, and they need the double. They have to bet it all, but that's a great wall from Jake. Separates Gino. There's the Fields of Love, and Jake's going to be able to ult to make sure that he's not locked down from that one. The damage is looking to try and turn around. Venenu taking way too much in that fight, but he's going to return just as much help from Variety. He's going to be able to find one, finds two with Barra, make it 3 down and 4. Just keep counting them up, looking for the deicide now. Heroin goes down. Barracuda gets a triple kill, and whether they want the Oni Fury or some towers in mid, they're going to be able to walk away happy from this one as the Renegades.
Yeah, it's going to be Fire Giant and the rest of the map soon to follow. That fight is just a 90%er for Renegades, but they execute very well. Venenu goes in, takes a lot of damage, dies pretty early, but did enough damage to make his life worth it. Jake just perfect on the disengage whenever he gets aggressed on. And look, again, eUnited, it might seem like, oh my god, they're inting. What are they doing trying to group up when they're down by that much? When you're down by this much, you've got to just make a call that, okay, this is where we're just going to bet it all. You know, we know we're not favored, but every fight after this is going to be worse for us. So let's just try and make a play while we can maybe surprise them. I've got no problem with the shot call from eUnited. I have a problem with how we got here in the first place for them.
Yeah, it's not the last fight. It's the first fight of each of these games that have really been the issues. But hey, let's look at it. 3.5 minutes to work with on a Fire Giant, a power play. And unfortunately for the Renegades, I will have to say, they're not speedrunning this one. At least not that we're going to be seeing. Still, pretty fast game. It does seem like the end is in sight. If they can keep this pace up with this amount of wins, 21-4, you don't get there without just a lot of control. They're going to go ahead and start up an Oni Fury. You want more control. This is going to be a way to at least equalize some of these lanes. Meanwhile, you've got a duo split pushing over there on right. I mean, even if Scream and Baskin get this tier 2, is it going to be worth it?
And they're not going to be able to do anything by being there. So this is better than getting your back camps while Renegades end up getting the Oni Fury. At least get some global gold and a win condition for yourselves. But now that Renegades have the Oni Fury, it's going to be pretty difficult to stop one of these Phoenix Sieges.
Well, they are looking to clear up the wave on right. Mid and left still have their Oni waves. Speaking of left, well, it's a 4v3 as of right now. As Variety backed, he's just keeping them busy. He's trying to stop them from backing because this Phoenix is going to go down through the skies, and crashing down is going to be Barracuda, just off the mark for the damage, but it doesn't matter. He's got the autos to clean up Heroin. No passive this time, so he's just in the ground. Phoenix is still standing, so maybe the Renegades put their focus somewhere else. Gino blinks in. Not going to be able to hit the freeze here from Jake. The wall is good. Barra is doing a little bit better. That Bloodforge shielding coming in clutch for him. Keeps him alive, gets him out of there. And that lifesteal is going to be just enough to make sure Venenu can find themselves a kill. 2 members left standing on the side of eUnited. The Phoenix goes down, and Renegades, they look like they're flirting with the idea of going into the Titan room. They're not quite sure yet if they want to commit to it. The health bar's just low enough, but they're finally going to start dealing the damage. Minion waves coming in with them. Fire Giant still standing strong. Titan at 3/4 HP. The damage onto Scream more than enough to put him in the ground. Gino, last man standing. Not much he can do on his own. Has the help of Heroin to come through, but it's just a little bit too late. Barra gets one more to top it off. 8-1 and 6 for him. 9-1 and 11 for the jungler. And just a 2-0 here for the set.
Love watching Jake pop off there in the player cam. Clearly meant a lot to him. This is the biggest game of Jake's career. Don't forget, I mean, he has only been in the league this year. He had a phenomenal set. Pressure clearly did not get to him. I don't know if it was pressure that got to eUnited or what, but clearly one of the worst performances we've seen in their biggest set of the entire year. Now they have to wait until placements to get back into it, whereas Renegades, congratulations to them. They've earned your 6th seed, and they'll be going to playoffs this phase 2.
Well, lucky for eUnited, that's not the last look that we'll have. They have a chance to give us a little bit better of a lingering taste because they play again later this week. But as of right now, everyone is looking at the Renegades and how phenomenal that was. I mean, you need a set like this to solidify yourselves in the playoffs, and they've done just that as it is right now. We'll go to a quick break and then back to the desk for them to break it down.